circumstances.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Sarah Alday.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will join me in sending our deepest sympathy and condolences to the family and loved ones of Lance Corporal George Hooley of the Parachute Regiment, who died yesterday in Ukraine. Lance Corporal Hooley was injured in a tragic accident away from the front lines while observing Ukrainian forces testing a new defensive capability. His life was full of courage and determination. He served our country with honour and distinction around the world in the cause of freedom and democracy, including as part of the small number of British personnel in Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, I place his name on record today to express our gratitude and respect and to affirm that his service will never be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, on Monday I hosted President Zelensky, President Macron and Chancellor Merz in Downing Street. We must redouble our efforts. The UK, Europe and our allies will stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, stand up to Putin's aggression and work to deliver a just and lasting peace. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Sarah Alday.
Mr. Speaker, a couple in my constituency fled persecution from the Egyptian authorities, who accused them of being traitors and terrorists due to their work as professional journalists. They gained refugee status here in 2021 and are now 3 months away from being eligible for indefinite leave to remain. The UK is their home, but their stability and family life are being threatened by changes in government policy. I'm concerned that the government has lost sight of the real-life impact that these changes will have on working families living here legally. And with details of transitional arrangements still under consultation, can the Prime Minister provide clarity regarding the transitional support available to families already on the pathway to indefinite leave to remain? Thank you.
Well, can I say this country will always be compassionate in relation to refugees and comply with our full obligations under the various conventions. It is important that we address some of the challenges we face at the moment, but we mustn't lose sight that we've always been a compassionate country that welcomes refugees to our shores.
Rachel Bassel.
Mr. Speaker, while the last government was indifferent to child poverty, this government's driving mission must be to eradicate child poverty, and the strategy is a first step on that path. Over the first 1,001 critical days in pregnancy and early years, poverty contributes to malnourished babies, developmental delay, hypothermia and poor life outcomes. This is unacceptable. So will the Prime Minister lift pregnant women and babies out of poverty in York and across the country in this Parliament and ensure that we relieve poverty over the first 1,001 critical days?
Can I thank her for raising this? And I'm proud that babies born today will have a better start in life thanks to our decisions. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly concerned by maternity services, and that's why we've commissioned a review so every mother is heard, gets proper care at what should be a special time, and currently too many are failed. We're funding healthy babies services in 75 of the most deprived areas, and we've taken action to save parents up to £500 a year on infant formula. It is a moral mission of this government to lift children out of poverty, and we intend to do so. The Leader of the Opposition thinks that maternity pay is excessive and would go back to the failment that puts hundreds of thousands of children into poverty.
Kemi Badenoch, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I echo the sentiments of the Prime Minister? The thoughts of the whole House will rightly be with the family of Lance Corporal Hooley, who tragically died supporting Ukraine in her fight for freedom. Can the right honourable gentleman tell the House why are his own MPs describing him as a caretaker Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, my own MPs are very proud. We've just passed a budget which protected our public services and our NHS. No austerity which brought our NHS to the ground. We've created the conditions for economic stability with the headroom we need. Mr. Speaker, we're concentrating on the single most important issue for families up and down the country, which is the cost of living, by taking £150 off their energy bills. That's in addition to the 150 for the 6 million of the poorest household. We're concentrating on what matters to the country. She's trying to save her job.
Mr. Speaker, let me answer the question for the Prime Minister. He's being called a caretaker because everyone can see that he's lost control of his party. And this lot, they're all so busy trying to replace him.
Order. Sorry? Can I just say the same people are making the same noises they made last week? I did say last week it wasn't the right time. I wouldn't do it this week. So please, let's not carry on with the way we left it last week. Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, they can make as much noise as they like. We all know that this lot are so busy trying to replace him that they've taken their eyes off the ball. Let's start, Mr. Speaker. Wait for it. Let's start with the Energy Secretary, who wants to recycle himself as leader. He said he'd cut families' energy bills by £300. Can the Prime Minister tell the House how much have energy bills fallen by since the election?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to say we're taking £150 off energy bills. I can also tell her that that's on top of the £150 we've taken off last year for the 3 million poorest families, now for 6 million poorest families. Mr. Speaker, she talks about leaving. The problem for us, last week,
What? Mr. May, I've told this side, I'll now tell this side. We don't need the pantomime auditions anymore, please.
Mr. Speaker, last week I pointed out that 3 of her ex-MPs went to reform. That included the former Deputy Chairman, Jonathan Gullis. He liked to think of himself as a straight talker. He said they're finished and they've lost the trust of the British people. In total, Mr. Speaker, 21 ex-Tory MPs have now left for reform. The real question, Mr. Speaker, is who's next? We can all see the Shadow Justice Secretary twitching after his come and get me plea from the member of Clacton. Mr. Speaker, we need no lessons from them.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him about energy bills. He could power the national grid on all of that hot air. He promised to cut energy bills by £300. Energy bills have risen by £187. But let's look at someone else who's making a mess. Let's look at the Education Secretary. Oh, there she is. Labour pledged to recruit 6,500 more teachers. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how many extra teachers are there since she became Education Secretary?
More than when they left office. I'm very proud to say so. We're in an upward trajectory. Mr. Speaker, they left our health service on its knees. They left our schools in a mess. They left our economy absolutely broken. They should be utterly ashamed of their record in service.
Wrong. Mr. Speaker, there are now 400 fewer teachers since she came into office. She's shaking her head. It's on the DFE website. Does she not check it once in a while? I can understand that the Right Honourable Lady is angry. We're all angry at the mess she's making. The Prime Minister doesn't know what's going on in energy. He doesn't know what's going on in education. Does he know anything about what's going on in the Home Office? Last year, the Prime Minister promised to recruit 13,000 more police officers. How's that going?
Prime Minister.
3,000 more by the end of March, and we're rising on police numbers. Mr. Speaker, they left the Home Office. The criminal justice system is utterly broken. Sir Brian Leveson has said on that. They lost control of our borders. They lost control of every single department. And she's obviously spent the morning rehearsing for the Liz Truss show. She's probably going to be the guest star next week. Both of them talking about how Liz Truss was 100% right. But what Liz Truss said was the Conservatives need to take... No, they don't want to hear it. The Conservatives need to take responsibility. The Conservatives need to take responsibility for their 14 years of failure. That was Liz Truss, their former leader. So perhaps she'll heed that, get up and say sorry.
Kemi Badenoch.
Wrong again. I asked him how many police officers. There are now 1,300 fewer officers than at the election. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the Home Secretary wants his job, but I do read that she's having conversations with Tony Blair because he's already given up on the Prime Minister. Why don't we talk about the Health Secretary? Let's see how he's doing. We do know he definitely wants the job. He said he'd end the doctor strikes. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how many appointments have been lost to strike action since last July?
Mr. Speaker, they left the NHS an absolute mess, with the highest waiting lists on record and the lowest confidence in the NHS ever. The Health Secretary said he would do 2 million extra appointments. He hasn't done 2 or 3 or 4. He's done 5 million extra appointments. That is because we invested in the NHS. What did they do? Having broken it, they voted against that investment. They should hang their heads in shame.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him how many appointments have been lost to strike action. He doesn't know. Let me tell him. We have lost 93,000 appointments to strikes since the Health Secretary gave doctors a massive pay rise. It's the truth. I know they wouldn't know the truth if it punched them in the face, but I'm telling them the truth. It is no wonder that we read this morning that the former Deputy Prime Minister has said about the Health Secretary she'd rather stick pins in her eyes than be on his golden ticket. And Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister congratulates himself on 5 million extra appointments. In our last year of office, we delivered 6.5 million extra appointments. Under Labour, Mr. Speaker, everything is getting worse. Jobs, bills, police numbers, teacher numbers, everything is getting worse. The cabinet should be doing their own jobs. What are they doing? They're trying to compete for the caretaker's job. The only person who doesn't want the Prime Minister's job is the Chancellor. She's just trying to cling on to her own. Isn't it time, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister admits that Labour isn't working?
Mr. Speaker, she's living proof you can say whatever you like when nobody is listening to anything you have to say. There's absolutely no substance. She's no credibility on the economy. She still believes that Liz Truss was 100% right. She wants to go back to austerity with £47 billion of cut. She thinks the minimum wage should be frozen too high. She's got no credibility on foreign policy. She complains about trade deals she tried to get and we got. She says that we should stay at home and not attend NATO or the G7. On issue after issue, she's clinging on to reform. That's not leadership, it's weakness. No wonder so many are leaving her party. They know there's absolutely no reason to stay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of families are moving into new estates only to discover that basic infrastructure, roads, drains and sewers remain in limbo, unadopted by public authorities. In mid-Cheshire alone, 4,700 households, more than 12% of all properties in the constituency, face this uncertainty with no guarantee over maintenance, safety and future costs, often years after developers have walked away. Can the Prime Minister say what steps he will take to make adoption timely and enforceable so homeowners are not left carrying the burden of unfinished infrastructure?
Well, I thank him for raising this serious issue for his constituents and over 1.7 million homeowners across the country who are left at the mercy of unfair costs and poor management. I can confirm we're consulting on reforming the system to reduce private management of these estates and to protect more homeowners from unfair charges. That's a vital part of our leasehold reforms to protect homeowners from high cost and make sure everyone has the amenities that they need.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in offering our condolences to the family and friends of Lance Corporal George Hooley, who died on duty in Ukraine? Our thoughts and prayers are with them. Can I congratulate Glastonbury's Lando Norris on becoming the 11th British driver to win the Formula One World Championship. And also everyone at McLaren's in Woking who powered him to the title. Mr. Speaker, President Trump's new national security strategy is a deeply alarming document. Quite apart from the irony of President Trump accusing others of trampling on basic principles of democracy, it repeats far-right tropes of civilizational erasure and threatens that the US government will cultivate resistance in Europe. No wonder Vladimir Putin has welcomed that strategy. So will the Prime Minister pick up the phone and make it clear to President Trump that any attempts to interfere with our democracy are totally unacceptable?
Can I join him in congratulating Lando for the incredible win? I went down to Woking on Monday to see some of the team at McLaren, and they're all wearing the pride that brought with them. On the question of Europe and President Trump's comments, what I see is a strong Europe, united behind Ukraine and united behind our long-standing values of freedom and democracy, and I will always stand up for those values and those freedoms.
And David.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear about standing up to President Trump. And if we're going to stand up to President Trump, we do need to strengthen our ties with Europe, not just on defence, but on the economy too. And the truth is, this government will not succeed unless it gets our economy growing strongly again. And the best way to do that is a customs union with Europe. The Prime Minister's chief economic advisor knows it. The Deputy Prime Minister knows it. And yesterday, the Labour chair of the Treasury Select Committee showed she knows it too when she backed our bill. Does the Prime Minister fear that if he keeps opposing a customs union, in 12 months' time, he will not be standing there?
Mr. Speaker, we have got a close relationship with the EU through our reset earlier this year. And yes, I do want a closer relationship than the one we've got at the moment. We are moving towards that. We do have manifesto commitments on issues such as single market, customs union and freedom of movement. But I would gently point this out, that having now done significant trade deals with other countries, including the US and India, which are hugely important to the JLR workforce and on pharma, it is not now sensible to unravel what is effectively the best deal with the US that any country has got.
Susan Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Working in NHS, I saw the consequences of Tory underinvestment in our health service. I welcome the progress under this Labour government, falling waiting lists, higher patient satisfaction with the general practice, and the rollout of neighbourhood health centres announced in the budget. I thank the frontline staff, including in mental health and community services, for all their hard work, and I am especially grateful to all the staff at the William Harvey Hospital in Ashford who turned up to work during the last BMA-led resident doctor strike and ensured that so many planned appointments went ahead. With rising hospital admissions because of flu and increased demand on A&E services, does the Prime Minister agree that the BMA should call off their next planned strike and instead work with the government to find a solution?
Mr. Speaker is right. Waiting lists are falling with over 5 million extra appointments. More people are being seen within 18 weeks. And we've hired 2,600 new GPs. That's real progress thanks to the hard work of NHS staff, backed by our record investment. I do think the strikes are unjustified and they threaten that hard-won progress. And the focus should always be on patients.
Sybil Roberts.
He just said, the Prime Minister, he wanted a closer relationship with Europe, but then referenced the Labour Party manifesto. Wales has been hardest hit by Brexit. Exports are down by a third. When will he admit that the only solution to the chaos imposed by Brexit is to rejoin the customs union and the single market, or is he too afraid of what his party might say?
Mr. Speaker, I went to Solihull to see the JLR workforce, before we got the deal with President Trump. They were worried sick that they were going to lose their jobs, and that would be a loss for them, their families, and their communities. I took the call from President Trump when we got the deal in Solihull in JLR, so the first people I could tell were the workforce, who knew very well that that meant their jobs were safeguarded. We've also just done a deal on pharma, which is the first of its kind in the world and the best of its kind in the world. It is not sensible or fair to the JLR workforce or to the pharma sector to say, having achieved those things now, we should unravel them by discussion about a customs union. I just don't think it's a sensible way to take our country forward.
Justine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of the almost 1 million young people not in education, employment or training, hundreds of thousands are disconnected from the system entirely. Youth workers have a unique ability to bridge young people into support. I wouldn't be stood here today if I hadn't been supported by a youth worker called Russell when I dropped out of school. So will the Prime Minister use the National Youth Strategy to deliver a shared long-term vision for young people's outcomes, with good work as a central pillar and youth workers and trusted adults at its heart?
Well, I thank him for his question. The party opposite presided over a lost decade for our young people. I'm determined to support every young person to reach their potential. That's why we're delivering the first national youth strategy for 15 years to transform youth services, backed by over £500 million. Mr. Speaker, that means more youth workers, more youth centres, and a network of 50 young future hubs. That's on top of our youth job guarantee and our plan to create 50,000 more apprenticeships. We're building a Britain for the next generation.
Shaki Bhatti.
Mr. Speaker, over the coming weeks, millions of people from across the country will be visiting their local church. Churches are the custodians of our history and do enormous good. But in January, the government announced a £19 million cut to the listed places of worship grant, as well as putting a cap on the repair costs. This cut puts thousands of local churches at risk. And I say to the Prime Minister, if we lose our churches, we lose the very soul and essence of our communities and our country. So as we go into Christmas, will the Prime Minister do the right thing? He has 10 at risk in his own constituency. Will he reconsider this policy so that we can save our churches?
Mr. Speaker, we do support our churches and the work that those within our churches do, particularly in the lead up to Christmas. And I've got a reception for them in Downing Street this very afternoon.
Jim Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before May's election, Reform in Kent promised that they would improve services and cut taxes. Instead, vital services to older people and those with a mental health condition provided by great organisations like Imago and Involve is to be cut, and taxes are going up. Would the Prime Minister agree with me on two things? That given the additional money for the county through the Fair Funding Review, it's beyond belief that Kent are cutting services that vulnerable people rely on, and that their so-called Doge unit that we were told would eliminate waste actually stands for deluded, overconfident, gormless and embarrassing.
Well, it sums up very well how his community have been utterly let down by Reform. Whilst the member for Clacton is making excuses about his behaviour at school, look at what his party are doing across the country. Chaos in Kent. In Hampshire, their mayoral candidate says the Deputy Prime Minister, a black British man born in this country, should go back to the Caribbean. In Staffordshire, Reform's leader has been exposed as a white supremacist. It's not a coincidence, Mr. Speaker, because chaos and division is a member of Clacton's life work.
We're a hobos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Bath, parents of children with special educational needs, often very complex needs, are crying out for special school places. Funding to build a brand new special school at that Culver Hay site in Bath was secured, but the government has frozen the funding for almost 18 months without any explanation, leaving many families in the lurch. How much longer do families and children with special educational needs have to wait for this vital new school?
Well, I thank you for raising this, and we are working closely with local authorities on plans for special and alternative provision-free schools. We are keen to progress this, and I'll make sure that ministers update her in her particular case. But we are determined to fix the SEND system that fails parents and fails children, and that's why we've launched a national conversation to put families at the heart of the lasting reform. We've already put money into extra new places, a language support, and Best Start family hubs being rolled out across every area from April.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Blackburn, West Lothian, St Kentigern's Academy was part demolished due to wrack and is being rebuilt, costing £35 million. West Lothian Council found £20 million from its own stretched budget, but despite repeated pleas to the Scottish Cabinet Secretary for Education, who called it the most deserving case, funding has not been delivered. Will the Prime Minister back my call for the Scottish Government to urgently fund the £15 million shortfall and raise it with the First Minister in their next meeting?
Well, can I thank her, because she's fought for her constituents on this issue for years, and meanwhile decades of SNP cuts and broken promises have left schools crumbling. Mr. Speaker, what a contrast. By the end of this Parliament, every school in England will either be rack-free or we will rebuild them entirely. We delivered the largest settlement for the Scottish Government in the history of devolution. So the question for the SNP is, after decades of decline, what is their excuse?
Dr. Luke Evans.
Mr. Speaker, I feel for the Prime Minister. It must be tough wherever he goes in the UK because of his policies. A pub, higher taxes. A restaurant, higher taxes. A cafe, higher taxes. A farm, higher taxes. A GP, higher taxes. A care home, higher taxes. A hospice, higher taxes. So, Mr. Speaker, is this the reason the Prime Minister chooses to spend so much time out of this country?
What a load of nonsense. Mr. Speaker, we are at a critical stage in progress in Ukraine that will affect Ukraine's sovereignty, the whole of Europe, and the values that we hold dear. We are part of one of the leading countries to strengthen NATO at a vital time for defence and security in Europe. And we've secured trade deals that they tried for years to achieve, but never did because of our international engagement. And we've got better relations with the EU, all of which is good for our country. Ridiculous question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The video games company Rockstar in my constituency last month fired 31 employees without providing evidence or union representation. The IWGB alleges union busting. Having met Rockstar, they failed to reassure me they are following employment law, and I share concerns about union busting. Given this government is responsible for the biggest increase in workers' rights in a generation, does the Prime Minister agree all companies, regardless of profit size, must follow UK employment law and all workers have the right to join a union?
Well, it's a deeply concerning case. Every worker has the right to join a trade union, and we're determined to strengthen workers' rights and ensure they don't face unfair consequences for being part of a union. Ministers will look into the particular case that he raises and keep him updated.
Blake Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Digital ID is intrusive and fundamentally un-British. The government has no mandate for it. No sensible person believes it will tackle illegal immigration or illegal working. It's an attack on our open society and a staggering waste of taxpayers' money, isn't it?
Digital ID has huge benefits, as many countries in Europe are already demonstrating. And where they failed on our borders, we're taking control of our borders. I'm proud that we're doing so.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will know that SEND is in crisis across the country, but it's in particular crisis in Suffolk, where the County Council is in special measures for its failings. I'm delighted that the government has listened to one of my asks, which is to have a national conversation about SEND, so parents, young people and their advocates can have their voices heard. Will the Prime Minister back my call to make sure that we deliver the funding for the former Saxmundham Set School in Saxmundham that closed its doors for the last time in 2024?
Can I thank her? I know she's a dedicated campaigner on this issue, and I'll make sure ministers update her on the latest progress in her constituency. Our ambition is to make sure all children with SEND have access to the right support. That's why we're working closely with local authorities to deliver places where they're needed most.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is always talking about the fair choices that it has made. But is it a fair choice to balloon the benefits bill? Is it a fair choice to introduce an unfunded and unwanted digital ID that will cost the public billions? And is it a fair choice to increase taxes on working people when the promise was not to? The answer, Mr. Speaker, is no. So can I ask the Prime Minister to consider one final... So can I ask the Prime Minister to give one final fair choice, thinking of food security and to avoid devastation for families across the country and reverse the family farm tax?
Mr. Speaker, welfare ballooned on their watch. When the Shadow Chancellor was responsible for welfare, it ballooned by £33 billion. They left a £22 billion black hole. The OBR reviewed and said they added £16 billion to that. We'll take no lecture from them on the economy.
Final question, Carl Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's no denying that this government inherited a crisis in our criminal courts, with a number of cases waiting to be tried growing every single day. So if the Justice Secretary plan to do away with jury trials in some cases, not all, in some cases, is really about addressing the backlog and getting the position to something manageable, then why isn't there a sunset clause? And why has that been ruled out?
Well, he's absolutely right to draw attention to the crisis in our courts. Yes, he says. Sir Brian Leveson is one of our most respected senior judges. He did an independent report, and he made clear that we risk, in his words, total collapse of the criminal justice system without change. That is what they're chuntering at. That is what they left. A system near total collapse, where victims of sexual violence and rape wait years to get justice. That is not justice, that is victims failed. I can reassure him, and I know he feels very strongly on this, that juries will remain a cornerstone of our justice system for the most serious cases.
Mr. Robertson, I don't want shouting like that again. Do we understand each other? Okay. Right. That completes Prime Minister's questions. Yeah.